Palantir is it's a profit-making venture. And so part of their profit-making venture is they need to have a certain amount of customers, and the United States is a really good customer of that. Actually, I don't know, have you seen the new Palantir commercial?
No.
Oh, it's really interesting. Maybe
is it on YouTube?
I think so. Maybe you can look it up.
Oh, we gotta see this.
Because I think what the Palantir
does it start out with the idea of taking lives and saving lives is super interesting.
Is that what?
That's an Alex Karp quote.
Oh gosh. Oh, that I'm sure that make. Oh yeah, future warfare.
That's it.
So check this out. Okay, so this specifically, this swarming technology. Yeesh.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's fucking sinister.
This
Go to the I want to read the comments. What's the top comment of that video?
UFOs.
Please have them turned off. Oh, of course they have them turned off.
Cowards. Absolute cowards. So
doing Israel's dirty work.
This sort of philosophy, right, of like you have this enormous swarm. There's actually a paper that you can probably find called the Replicator program. So if you look at Replicator on the RAND papers,
Replicator program.
Yeah, Replicator, and it this is a bit of what we're seeing here, and what Replicator is the idea of attritable systems. So attritable systems are systems which essentially they lower the cost by having systems which are not the difference between attritable and another system would be an exquisite system. So an exquisite system would be something along the lines of aircraft carrier, this enormous multi-billion-dollar thing.
Yeah.
An attritable system would be a system that is like a drone, right? Something that like you don't want to lose it because you could reuse it, but if you lose it, it's not going to bankrupt you, right? And so all of these little drones that you just saw, pop out of this potentially fictional ship.
They look like little DJI Mavics, like little.
Right. And so the idea with Replicator is that you have this enormous cost imposition by using attritable systems against exquisite systems. That if you can kill, let's say, an aircraft carrier with a couple of drones that are worth thousands of dollars, you're essentially shooting thousands of dollars at billions of dollars.
Right.
And so in the war of the spreadsheet, it's clear who wins. And you can potentially bankrupt the opponent by doing that. And
so this is something that this is a paper that Rand put together?
It's right there, yeah. The Replicator program.
Is this similar to what Anduril is doing?
Yeah, Anduril is certainly working under this banner.
And for people who don't know, what is Anduril?
Anduril's I don't, would you even call them a startup at this point? They're a defense company.
Okay.
They're operating under a very different model than the traditional defense companies, if I can say traditional defense companies.
Is it similar to that company Y Combinator, whatever it's called?
No, Y Combinator is an incubator. So they just they give funding for startup ideas.
Got it.
But what Anduril does is they've taken a very different tack on creating defense products, right? Mm-hmm. So instead of waiting on what's called an RFP or like a request for proposal from the United States government, the United States government says, hey, we need a really cool drone that does X, Y, and Z. And then let's say traditional defense company like Boeing or Northrop Grumman will bid on that, saying, hey, here's what we think we can do with that. They're basically saying, hey, we're going to make what we think you need in the future and you can pay us for it. So essentially trying to leverage their privatized speed and funding to create defense products that are more that are easily able to be purchased by the United States government. And the idea is to speed up that process of procurement.
Okay.
Because as you know, the United States, and this is one of the things that I think is talked about quite a bit, and I've written some stuff about this for my newsletter, is that the procurement process is so slow that it is oftentimes really difficult for the United States to deal with things on the ground. A good example of this would be during the global war on terror. We had sort of this really recent past of Desert Storm. So Desert Storm was sometimes known as the very first space war, and the reason was we used we used what's Google Maps? You know.
GPS?
GPS, that's right. Okay. Yeah, so we use
Which is made by DARPA, right?
Yeah. So we use GPS in order to locate various forces that were on the ground, and we used that for targeting, and we used it for command and control to great effect. Annie Jacobsen writes about this in her book too. So it was the very first space war. As we went into the global war on terror, the thought was we would be able to leverage this outsized technological advantage. I think in Annie Jacobsen's book, The Pentagon's Brain, they talk about having a battlefield that can see and hear at the exact same time.
Right.
So we had these enormous technological capabilities, and we still got bogged down.
This was a big part of her first Platoon book as well, I think.
I didn't read that one, but I love her work.
Yeah.
Shout out to Annie Jacobsen. I hear you're in Los Angeles. Let's hang out. But it was undone by IEDs. It was undone by, a couple pounds of fertilizer and an off-the-shelf cell phone.
Right.
And so study after study was done on how do we
guerrilla warfare.
Right. And this is fourth generation warfare, right? This is insurgent warfare. And so how do we get around these IEDs? And what you had at a certain point was you had the soldiers on the ground actually retrofitting their own vehicles with what they called hillbilly armor. And it was armoring that was going to protect them from the IEDs. And so let's fast forward maybe 4 or 5 years into the global war on terror. We know that IEDs are constantly taking the lives of American servicemen. They're outfitting their own vehicles with technology to potentially help them survive these attacks. And then 5 years later, the Department of Defense is able to give them the MRAP, which is armored specifically against IEDs. So the procurement process is quite slow.
Yeah.
And so companies like Anduril, companies like Palantir are taking a bet that if they're able to sort of leverage this, private funding, and two, the sort of Silicon Valley, let's look around corners and build for where the puck is going to be rather than where the puck is now, then we can potentially either win the wars of the future or stop them before they even start.
Right. If you have a lot of tentacles and a lot of arms out there basically testing shit that you would never even or people even coming up with theories like this drone thing,
right?
So having thousands of drones that are worth less than $100,000 swarm these ships that are worth billions of dollars and potentially take them out.
Well, and this is something that
that's
we're seeing.
Kind of a crazy theory.
Yeah, this is something we're seeing in Ukraine too. I mean, one of the
Did you see how much money we're spending on our new fleet of nuclear submarines?
I have no idea. Probably a lot, though.
Can you find that, Steve? There's we probably looked at this a few months ago, but there's a new class. They're calling them the Columbia class submarines, I believe. We had the Ohios.
Yeah.
And now they're working on the Columbia submarines, and I think they cost like $2 billion each.
Nuclear subs don't come cheap, from what I understand.
The new total projected budget for the Columbia class submarine is worth $109 billion. Oh, that was it. I thought it was more. So $109 billion for 12 subs.
Wow. That's pretty remarkable.
Estimated the cost for the lead boat, USS District of Columbia, is estimated to be around $15.2 billion.
See, this is exactly what I'm talking about exquisite systems.
Yeah.
Obviously, incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
And you can see this concept of attritability as it happened in Ukraine pretty massively, right? Ukrainian defenses were one of the first armies to defeat a navy without having a navy, right? the Russian forces weren't able to completely cut off Odessa because they had so many unarmed vehicles or unmanned vehicles that were able to take out boats.
Oh, wow.
Right? And so
was this stuff the U.S. gave them?
Actually, no. So there's the it's something that the U.S. is, I think, currently looking at and learning from. But the forces on the ground, from what I understand, in Ukraine were really looking at what they could do natively, like what were their indigenous capabilities.
Yeah.
And one of those indigenous capabilities was not only having a decent amount of drones around, but was through the first-person view racing community. So there's like a drone racing community. Have you ever seen videos of that?
Oh, yeah. It's fucking nuts.
It's insane. So they had these first-person view racers that were clearly fantastic at flying drones. And then all they needed to do was 3D print little brackets to make sure that they could hold explosive devices. And those became the leading weapon and a new technological innovation that happened from the ground rather than from, some bureaucratic environment speaking down to the ground.
Yeah.
And so that's how they were filling the innovation gap. So it's certainly something that the United States has started looking into, but it's also something that I think everybody is paying attention to.